Welcome to The Explainer. Today we are diving deep into Elon Musk's playbook for entrepreneurs. But forget all the glamour you usually hear about. We're going to get into his raw, unfiltered advice on what it really takes to start a company, using his own words to guide us.
So let's just start with Musk's own pretty stark warning. I mean, this one quote says it all, doesn't it? It perfectly sets the stage. This isn't meant to be some rah-rah motivational speech. It's a serious reality check for the crazy and often painful journey we're about to explore.
So, what does this whole eating glass thing actually look like in practice? Well, Musk maps it out with this concept he calls the entrepreneur's happiness curve. You should really think of it as a blueprint for the emotional roller coaster you are about to get on. And this chart just visualizes that roller coaster perfectly. See, you start out with all this optimism, your happiness is through the roof. But then, as the problems start to pile up, you go down, way down, into what Musk calls a world of hurt. That's the abyss. And you gotta notice the key word here, if. Only if you succeed, after a really long and tough journey, do you finally get back to that high. And let's just be brutally honest about the odds here, because Musk sure is. He doesn't pull any punches. Failure isn't just some risk, it is the most likely thing to happen. He even points out that a giant company like Tesla came incredibly close to just completely falling apart. You have to remember, success is the exception, it is not the rule. So this all brings us to a really critical question. I mean, if the whole journey is this painful and you're probably gonna fail, why would anyone ever sign up for this? The answer, at least according to Musk, has absolutely nothing to do with a normal career path or trying to get a quick payday. Nope. The motivation has to come from something much deeper inside you. And here it is, the core idea. Passion is not some nice-to-have extra. When you're starting a company, it's a basic survival tool. Without it, you're just not going to have the fuel you need to get through that abyss. It's that simple.
This is exactly why loving what you do isn't even a question. It's non-negotiable. See, real passion means your brain is constantly churning on the problem even when you're technically off the clock. It's that kind of obsession that keeps you going when literally everything else is telling you to just give up. Okay, now for the next piece of equipment you need to navigate the abyss. Once you've got the passion, you need to build this relentless, almost masochistic kind of intellectual honesty.
Musk's advice here is all about being proactive. You have to actively hunt down criticism. Don't just sit there and wait for it. He even says to specifically ask your friends because, they're the ones who often see what's wrong, but are just too nice to want to hurt your feelings. Your job is to make them feel totally safe to give you that painful but golden truth.
This requires a massive shift in your mindset. Our natural human instinct is to want to be right? We're always looking for validation. Musk says you have to fight that urge with everything you've got. Start from the default position that you're wrong, and then make it your absolute mission to find every single flaw in your idea. The goal isn't to be right, it's to become less wrong over time.
And you can really see this stark difference right here. On one side, you've got the amateur, who's just powered by wishful thinking, and on the other, you have the professional, who is obsessed with rigorous analysis and self-critique. It really is the difference between hoping you're right and doing the incredibly hard work to find out where you're wrong. All right, now for what might be the most powerful weapon in Musk's entire arsenal. This isn't just about working hard or being passionate. This is about a fundamental way of thinking that lets you create a totally new path instead of just following what everyone else is doing. See, the default way to build something is to just look at what's already out there and then try to make it a little bit better. Musk says that's a trap. Real, game-changing innovation, he says, doesn't come from copying or what he calls reasoning by analogy. It comes from a much more fundamental way of thinking. This is the heart of what's called first principles thinking. It's basically a physics-based approach to business. So instead of just accepting that, batteries have always cost this much, you break it all the way down. You ask, okay, what are the most fundamental materials inside a battery? What do those raw materials actually cost on the market? By boiling the problem down to its absolute undeniable truths, you find out what's actually possible, not just what's been done before.
Now, the process sounds pretty straightforward, right? But it's not easy. You identify all the assumptions people make about a problem. Then you strip every single one of them away until you're left with just the basic fundamental truths. And from that totally clean slate, you build a new solution from the ground up. Musk himself admits it's incredibly draining mentally, but he also points out that it's exactly how physicists were able to figure out something as mind-bending as quantum mechanics. And so that brings us full circle, right back to the end of this whole odyssey. We've gone down into the abyss, armed with our passion, our intellectual honesty, and this idea of first principles thinking. So it's time to look at that happiness curve one more time. The big insight here is that getting back to happiness isn't some kind of participation trophy you get just for showing up. No way. It's a hard-fought victory. It's something you earn only by surviving that long, grueling, painful abyss. It's the result of enduring, not just starting. And this last question, it really gets to the very heart of what it means to be a true entrepreneur, doesn't it? For people like that, success is never the finish line. It's just validation of a process they are often willing and maybe even excited to start all over again.